The funeral home smelled like lilies and grief. I stood near the casket where my mother lay, looking peaceful in a way she hadn't looked in months, and tried not to hear the whispers behind me. Poor woman, only 62. I heard it was her heart. So sudden, such a tragedy. Not sudden. Mom had been sick for 6 months. But to most of these people, distant relatives, her church friends, neighbors who'd known her casually, her death seemed to come out of nowhere because she'd been private about her illness, had insisted on maintaining normalcy even when normal was slipping away. I felt my brother Daniel approach before I saw him, felt the weight of his anger like a physical presence. "We need to talk," he said quietly. "Outside." I followed him to the parking lot, where the October air was crisp and my breath came out in clouds. Daniel's wife Angela and their kids were in the car, watching us through the window. "I can't do this in there," Daniel said, his voice shaking. "Can't pretend everything's fine. Can't stand next to you and accept condolences like we're a united family." "Daniel!" "You killed her, Emma. You might as well have put a gun to her head." The words hit like a physical blow. "What?" "The stress. The constant fighting. The way you broke her heart over and over again with your choices. The doctor said stress was bad for her heart, that she needed to avoid it. And what did you do? You gave her nothing but stress for the past 3 years." I felt tears starting, but refused to let them fall. "That's not fair." "Fair? You want to talk about fair? Mom spent 6 months dying, and half that time she was crying about you, about your lifestyle. About how you'd rejected everything she believed in, about how you'd chosen," he gestured vaguely, disgust in his expression, "about how you'd chosen sin over family." "I didn't choose sin. I chose to be honest about who I am. You chose to throw your sexuality in her face. You chose to bring that woman around, to force Mom to acknowledge your relationship when you knew it went against everything she believed. You couldn't just be discreet. You had to make it Mom's problem." "And that woman was Rebecca, my girlfriend of 2 years. The woman I loved, the woman Mom had refused to meet, refused to acknowledge, refused to accept. I didn't force anything. I just wanted Mom to know me, the real me. I wanted her to meet someone important to me. And it stressed her out, made her sick, made her condition worse. The doctor said stress could trigger cardiac events. And you kept pushing, kept insisting she accept you, kept breaking her heart until it literally gave out." "That's not what happened, isn't it? She had her first heart attack right after you told her you were moving in with Rebecca. Her second one was a week after you brought Rebecca to Sunday dinner uninvited. And her final one, the one that killed her, 2 days after you sent her that email about getting engaged. You want to tell me that's coincidence?" I couldn't speak. The timeline he'd laid out, the correlation between my life events and Mom's heart attacks, it looked damning. It looked like cause and effect. "I didn't know," I whispered. "I didn't know the stress was making her worse. I just wanted her to accept me." "Well, she couldn't. And you knew that. You knew her faith was everything to her. You knew accepting your lifestyle would mean betraying everything she believed. But you kept pushing anyway. You chose your desires over her health, and now she's dead. I never wanted, but you didn't care enough to stop. That's the truth, Emma. You cared more about being accepted than about keeping Mom alive, and now you get to live with that. He walked back toward the funeral home, leaving me standing alone in the parking lot, his words echoing in my head. You killed her. You're the reason she died. Your choices, your selfishness, your refusal to hide. I leaned against my car, fighting the urge to vomit. Could he be right? Had my insistence on living authentically, on refusing to hide my relationship, on trying to have a real relationship with my mother, had that actually killed her? I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and called Rebecca. "How are you holding up?" she asked gently. "Daniel just told me I killed Mom. He said the stress of me being out, of us being together, caused her heart attacks. He said I chose my desires over her health." Rebecca was quiet for a moment. "Emma, that's not how heart disease works. But the timeline, every major event in my life corresponded with one of her cardiac episodes. What if he's right? What if I did this? You need to talk to her doctors. Get the actual medical facts. Don't let Daniel's grief and prejudice make you take responsibility for something that wasn't your fault." But I couldn't shake the guilt. Couldn't stop replaying every interaction with Mom over the past 3 years. Every time I'd insisted on being myself instead of hiding. Every moment I'd pushed for acceptance instead of quietly disappearing into the closet she'd wanted me to stay in. The funeral service was torture. Daniel gave a eulogy about Mom's faith, her devotion to God, her struggle with challenges to her beliefs. Everyone knew he was talking about me. Angela cried dramatically. Their kids looked at me like I was a monster. I gave my own eulogy, shorter, more personal, talked about Mom teaching me to bake, about her terrible jokes, about the way she'd supported me through college even when money was tight. I didn't mention the past 3 years, didn't mention the divide between us, didn't mention that she died having never met Rebecca, having never accepted who I was. After the service, during the reception at the church, I found myself cornered by Aunt Linda, Mom's sister. "Emma, I need you to know something. Your mother loved you, even when she didn't understand you, even when she struggled with your choices. She loved you. Did she? Because she wouldn't see me, wouldn't take my calls sometimes, wouldn't let me bring Rebecca to family events. She was conflicted. Her faith told her one thing, her love for you told her another. She was trying to reconcile the two, and the stress of that killed her." Aunt Linda looked confused. "What?" "Daniel said the stress of dealing with me, with my sexuality, with my relationship, he said that's what caused her heart attacks, that I killed her." "That's absurd. Emma, your mother had advanced coronary artery disease. She'd had it for years, probably decades. The stress didn't cause it. Her genetics, her diet, her lack of exercise, those caused it." But the timing was coincidental. Heart disease doesn't work on a schedule tied to family drama. It works on plaque buildup and arterial blockage and tissue damage that accumulates over years. Before I could respond, there was a commotion at the entrance. Dr. Patel, Mom's cardiologist, had arrived. He made his way through the crowd to me and Daniel. "I'm so sorry for your loss," he said. "Your mother was a remarkable woman. I wanted to pay my respects." "Thank you for coming," Daniel said stiffly. "It means a lot that you cared for her so well." Dr. Patel hesitated. "I also wanted to speak with both of you. There's something I need to clarify. I overheard some conversation earlier." He glanced at me. "About stress and your mother's condition. We were just discussing how various stressors may have contributed to her cardiac events," Daniel said in a voice that made it clear he was still blaming me. "That's what I wanted to address. May we speak privately?" We moved to a small room off the main hall. Dr. Patel pulled out a file folder. "I brought your mother's medical records. I thought you should understand her actual condition rather than speculating about causation." He opened the file, showing us imaging results and test data that meant nothing to me, but apparently meant something to Daniel, who'd gone to medical school before switching to dentistry. "Your mother had severe coronary artery disease. Three of her major arteries were 80–90% blocked. This didn't happen over months or years. This was decades of buildup. Genetic predisposition, high cholesterol, smoking when she was younger. Her first heart attack was inevitable. The only question was when. But the timing," Daniel started, "was coincidental. I know it's human nature to look for causes, for someone or something to blame. But Emma, Daniel, I need you both to understand something clearly. Your mother's heart attacks were not caused by stress. They were caused by physical blockages that had been developing since she was probably in her 30s. He pulled out another page. "This is from her first visit to me 5 years ago. She already had significant disease then. Before Emma came out, before any of the family tensions you've mentioned. The trajectory was set long before recent events. But stress can trigger cardiac events," Daniel protested. "You told Mom to avoid stress. I told her to avoid stress because stress can be a trigger for someone who already has severe disease. But triggers are not causes. If it wasn't stress, it would have been physical exertion or a large meal or even nothing at all. The disease was the problem. The trigger was incidental." Dr. Patel looked directly at me. "Emma, your mother told me about the family situation. She told me about your relationship, about the religious conflict, about how Daniel blamed you for her stress. I need you to hear this. You did not cause your mother's heart disease. You did not cause her heart attacks. Her condition was severe and degenerative. She was going to have these cardiac events, regardless of family dynamics. But she had them after specific events in my life. Correlation is not causation." I could just as easily say she had heart attacks after eating breakfast, after going to church, after watching her favorite TV show. The disease was going to progress. Events were going to coincide with that progression purely by chance. He turned to Daniel. and I need you to hear this too. Your mother's death was a tragedy, but it was not your sister's fault. Blaming Emma for a disease process that started before she was even born is both medically inaccurate and cruel. Daniel looked like he'd been slapped, but Mom was so stressed about Emma. Your mother was stressed about many things: her health, her faith, her children, her finances. Life is stressful. But stress did not build plaque in her arteries. Stress did not cause decades of damage. Stress may have been an incidental trigger for someone whose heart was already critically compromised, but so would have been anything else that raised her heart rate or blood pressure. He pulled out one more document. This is from your mother's last appointment with me, 2 weeks before she died. She knew the end was coming. Her disease was too advanced for intervention. We discussed hospice. She'd made peace with it. She never told us, I said quietly. She didn't want to burden you. But Emma, she asked me to tell you something if she didn't get the chance. She asked me to tell you that she loved you, that she was sorry she couldn't reconcile her faith and your truth. That she hoped you'd be happy with Rebecca, that you shouldn't let anyone make you feel guilty for being who you are. I started crying then, really crying. She said that. She did. She was conflicted until the end. But she loved you. And she knew, medically, that her condition had nothing to do with you. She was worried Daniel would blame you. She made me promise to set the record straight if necessary. Dr. Patel handed me a sealed envelope. She also wrote you a letter. She gave it to me at that last appointment, asked me to deliver it after she passed. I think she wanted to say things she couldn't say when you were face to face. My hands shook as I took the envelope. My mother's handwriting on the front. For Emma. Daniel was staring at the medical records, his face pale. I was wrong. You were grieving, Dr. Patel said gently. Grief looks for someone to blame. But blaming your sister for a disease process she didn't cause, that's not fair to either of you. I said terrible things to her. I told her she killed Mom. Then you should apologize. And you should both remember that your mother loved you. Both of you. Her death wasn't anyone's fault. It was just a disease running its inevitable course. After Dr. Patel left, Daniel and I sat in that small room in silence. I still held Mom's letter, unopened. I'm sorry, Daniel said finally. I was so angry, so hurt, and it was easier to blame you than to accept that sometimes people just die, that sometimes there's no one at fault, nothing that could have been prevented. I needed someone to be responsible so I could direct all this rage and grief somewhere. You really hurt me. You made me think I killed our mother. I know. I was wrong. Not just medically wrong, but morally wrong. You didn't choose to be gay any more than Mom chose to have heart disease. You were just living your life, honestly, and I punished you for it because it was easier than dealing with my own complicated feelings about Mom's faith and your truth. Do you still think I'm sinful? He was quiet for a long time. I think I've been using religion as an excuse for prejudice. I think Mom did too. I think we were uncomfortable with your sexuality, so we hid behind scripture rather than examining our own biases. And I think we wasted 3 years that we could have spent actually knowing you and Rebecca instead of fighting about theology. That doesn't answer my question. I don't know what I believe anymore, but I know that you're my sister. I know that you didn't choose this to hurt anyone. I know that you deserve to be happy, and I know that what I said to you was unforgivable, even if you're generous enough to forgive it. I opened Mom's letter with shaking hands. Her familiar handwriting filled 2 pages. I read it silently while Daniel waited. "She says she loves me," I whispered. "She says she's sorry she couldn't get past her religious beliefs enough to accept Rebecca. She says she knows it wasn't a choice, that she wishes she'd been brave enough to question what she'd been taught instead of making me feel unwelcome. She says—" I couldn't continue. The tears were too thick in my throat. "What does she say?" Daniel asked gently. "She says she knows you'll probably blame me, that you've always been rigid in your faith, black and white in your thinking. She says to tell you that she was the same way and she regrets it. She says her heart disease was decades old, that Dr. Patel explained it had nothing to do with stress or family drama. She says she doesn't want me to carry guilt for her death, and she doesn't want you to carry anger." I folded the letter carefully. "She says she hopes we'll take care of each other after she's gone, that we'll choose love over judgment, that we'll be better than she was." Daniel was crying now too. "I'm so sorry, Emma, for everything, for the past 3 years, for today, for making you think you caused this. I'm sorry. I'm sorry too. Sorry Mom felt she had to choose between her faith and her daughter. Sorry you felt you had to defend her choices. Sorry we wasted time fighting instead of being family." We sat there together, 2 siblings trying to figure out how to rebuild what grief and prejudice had nearly destroyed. At my mom's funeral, my brother said I was the reason she died, that my sexuality, my relationship, my insistence on being openly gay had stressed her into fatal heart attacks. Then the doctor walked in with her medical records and explained that Mom had severe coronary artery disease that had nothing to do with family stress and everything to do with decades of genetic and lifestyle factors. Then the doctor gave me a letter where Mom apologized for not being brave enough to accept me, acknowledged her death wasn't my fault, and asked us to choose love over judgment after she was gone. My brother and I didn't magically reconcile. There was too much hurt, too many years of rejection and judgment, but we agreed to try, to get to know each other as adults instead of as kids divided by dogma, to let Rebecca be part of family events, to honor Mom's final wish that we be better than our prejudices. 3 months after the funeral, Daniel and Angela invited Rebecca and me to Thanksgiving. It was awkward. Angela clearly didn't approve. The kids were confused. But Daniel tried, asked Rebecca about her work, made an effort, showed up. "I'm still figuring out what I believe," he told me that night. "About theology, about sexuality, about all of it. But I know I don't want to lose another family member to rigidity and fear. Mom's death taught me that life is too short to waste on judgment. That's more than I expected, I said honestly. It's less than you deserve, but it's a start. My mom died believing her faith required her to reject my truth. She died conflicted, caught between love for her daughter and loyalty to her religion. She died without ever meeting Rebecca, without celebrating my happiness, without fully accepting who I am. But she died knowing, medically and factually, that my existence hadn't killed her, that my choices hadn't caused her death, that I deserved to live honestly without carrying guilt for her disease. And she left me a letter that said what she couldn't say in life, that she loved me anyway. That she was sorry, that she hoped I'd choose happiness over hiding. It wasn't the acceptance I'd wanted, but it was more than I'd thought I'd get. And sometimes that's enough to build on. Sometimes that's where healing starts.